Welcome to Blue Presents a podcast where I discuss all things music and how it affects my life. And today, I am joined by the gentlemen Zach and Dougie Fresh. We call him Dougie Fresh, but his real name's Doug. But I enjoy having these guys on today, man. They had me as a guest on their show, and I thought it would be awesome to have them as a guest on my show. And it's a great conversation, just discussing different things, different aspects of music. More of a conversation, more than an interview. So yeah, man, sit back and enjoy. Check those guys out. The Bronze Medal Podcast, available on all streaming platforms. If you'd like to be a guest on my show, or you have a show idea, hit me up on Instagram and Twitter, Podcast of Blue, or on Facebook at Blue Presents a Podcast. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. But before we get started, listen to my man AJ Pelletier on the reasons why you should be listening to the Roads We Travel podcast.
My name is AJ Pelletier, and I'm here to talk to you about my podcast, The Roads We've Traveled. It's a bi-weekly podcast where every episode I interview guests about their lives, their upbringings.
My father was, your stereotypical Irish drunk.
Their mental health,
like serious depression, very bad anxiety. I can look, as a kid, I can see where it showed up.
And whatever else they have going on in their lives. It's a heartfelt show where we share intimate details about our lives, our joys, our struggles, and our passions. And we like to have some laughs along the way too.
Are you wearing a scarf?
Oh my God!
I love it. I love it. You have no idea how funny that is, AJ.
We all have our own struggles and battles we deal with. My show is to help you out and show you that you are never alone. So why don't you take this journey with us? Subscribe to us and tell a friend. We are available on all major podcast networks, and we're also available on YouTube. So what are you waiting for? Let's hit the road together.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Blue Presents a Podcast. We're doing this over again. Unfortunately, we had a little interruption, but we're going to keep rolling with it. I am joined by Zach and Dougie Fresh of the podcast, the Bronze Medal Podcast. What's going on for a second time, gentlemen?
Ahoy. Not much has changed since a little bit ago. I still have tea in my mug, so that's good.
Oh, and in speaking, that's interesting. I just noticed that Doug's cup is a Periphery cup. Look at that. That is gorgeous.
He's got two of them.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, let's keep it going with that. So for the second time, what are your top favorite bands?
I should have taken the sip. I knew I could.
Oh my God.
Damn.
I was gonna say, we're gonna go Doug first, or you want to go Zach? You want to go first? We'll go let Doug.
I do 8 bands.
Whatever you want, Doug. This is your time to shine, sir.
I'm gonna throw Monuments in there now.
Okay.
Gojira, Gorillaz, Invent, Animate, Northlane, Thornhill, and Chelsea, which is 8 bands or 7. No, that's 7. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say I'm surprised you didn't say Darko, so then that'd have been 9.
It's definitely in there. The thing is, like, every band I listen to, I feel like is one of my favorite bands. I'm just like one of those kind of music listeners. Like Periphery's in that list, but it's like if you only have so many slots, how do you ever? Let's put it this way: every band that I've been listening to within like the last 5 years on a steady basis is one of my favorite bands of all time.
Yeah, absolutely nothing wrong with that, man.
Dude, like for the last week and a half, all I listened to was Lorna Shore. To that EP, that was it. 18 minutes cycled throughout the entire workday. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. Like the Invent Animate song that came out yesterday broke me of that. I'm not joking. That's what it was. Yeah.
I actually haven't had a chance to listen to that yet.
You didn't listen to that yet?
I haven't.
I will admit that I haven't either. So
I will.
I'm on my 30th listen probably. So.
Yeah, racking up their listen time.
All right, Zach, give me what you can, man. Whatever you got for me.
Okay, so I apologize if any of this sounds broken record-ish from before. But so first of all, love August Burns Red. I've actually seen them over 15 times. Seeing them in August coming up here, or seeing them in October coming up is going to be the 16th time. So I'm a fan. I've seen them enough. Actually, I'm going to add Every Time I Die to the list. I don't know why I didn't have that in before. I'm going to do that. A little bit of every single album they've had has been an absolute banger without fail. And it's been different enough from each one. So I appreciate that about them. Let's see. Per Spotify data, most of the album over the last 10 years was Periphery. So gotta go with that. Minus the Bear, one of my favorite bands of all time. Indie, math, ambient rock. You can't go wrong with that formula. And let's see. And then in that case, I'll end off with Animals as Leaders because they make me think really, 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 really hard. And I like to just, when you're listening to something kind of that's like especially mathy and you're trying to like bob your head to find where the pulse is. I really enjoy that. And that's gonna be me at this Meshuggah show in March that we're going to. But so I say those are top 5. I'm also gonna throw in too that I could listen to, this isn't an artist, but this is just kind of, I guess it's more of a YouTube channel. So maybe it's an artist in that regard. There's a channel called Lo-Fi Girl. It used to be called Chilled Cow, and it's literally just lo-fi 24/7. And
nothing wrong with that.
I can listen to that 24/7. Lo-fi music is beautiful. So I think that'll be my list, my comprehensive list. There you go.
No, man, and that's awesome list. As I said last time, I like that everybody got to throw in some stuff. Hey, man, sometimes you got to buck the system and add your own stuff, man. I love stuff like that. But before we get started, man, I just want to ask you guys how you guys got started in podcasting. As I understand, you guys used to meet and always talk about metal. Talk a little bit about that journey and how things got started.
I'd say even like a little bit of background into how you even got into like metal too. I'd be kind of curious to just dive into that. And then getting to this.
I started listening to Linkin Park.
Oh yeah.
When I was like 10.
Oh yeah.
And like my entire family hated that I listened, except for my aunt Lori, who's a fucking badass. She's awesome. Maybe my aunt Chrissy, but I don't remember. But so I started there. But that's like new metal. That's I consider that to be, I don't want to say soft, but it's kind of soft.
Oh man.
But Kyle, our wonderful producer, which none of this is possible without him,
the man,
showed me Whitechapel, and that's when I started getting into the really heavy shit.
Oh yeah,
like that. That's when I was like that. The switch.
Which album was it? Which album was it that you listened to first?
This is Exile. He showed me the song Possession. I remember it. Like we were sitting down on Main Street. And I remember this very vividly. And he's like, dude, have you heard Whitechapel? I was like, what is Whitechapel? And he goes, yes. And he plays it. And it's just like, do. And I was just like, fuck, dude. It's like, this is fucking sick. It's like, I like, where is this? Like, you gotta show me other bands like this. Give it to me, dude. Like, just where's the Mecca of this music? That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of where my metal journey started. And then it just branched off into different, like it's not all death metal, deathcore, there's a lot of metalcore, progressive metal, like mathcore. Like I even like prog rock, that kind of shit. But, like, yeah, dude, like that's just where it all started, was with Kyle showing me that.
We were both brought on by a very, very similar gateway drug of music choice. That Linkin Park, because that was where I started listening to heavy music too. I remember the first time hearing like any degree of like chugging of any sort in that, and I was Hybrid Theory, and I was like, screaming. Okay, this is fucking sick. And then hearing Screaming, like just to know that you could kind of have that kind of angst in music blew my mind. And then that went into bands like getting into Linkin Park or Korn or not Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit or Korn. I was supposed to see Limp Bizkit on this tour coming up, but then it got canceled. And then it moves into bands like, you know, you got Lamb of God, Slipknot, some bands that I don't really listen to so much these days, but I respect like crazy. And then into August Burns Red. And that's when it kind of fell all the way in. And now I'm more in the prog vein, but yeah, it really, that's kind of where we both started off individually. And then just us shooting this shit, like being buddies here in our small little town. And I don't know, there's not a lot of heavy music that passes through our area. It's mostly like bluegrass
jam band,
bluegrass jam bands, a lot of Fish wannabes, a lot of Grateful Dead.
Oh my God, yeah.
So just to find somebody else that's like very, very on your wavelength in terms of, you know, this style of music that has had a great impact on your life. It's cool to be able to long-windedly and without an end in sight, be able to like chat about that stuff. So our conversations just person to person evolved into Doug getting a shit ton of podcast gear, us slapping it in front of ourselves and calling it a podcast.
No, man. And that's awesome that even, you know, in your small town, you know, you guys were still able to like kind of find each other and kind of like link up and stuff like that. For me here, it's kind of difficult, being married and having kids, you know, and especially now, like it's hard to find people in this area that I live in. So a lot of my friends are in the Connecticut area, you know, obviously you have some coworkers you're cool with and stuff like that. But for the most part, for me, a lot of my friends are in the Connecticut area when it comes to like metal and stuff like that. You know, interestingly enough, somebody like Brandon, I met through a band that I was in 2018. He came on as a guitar player. It was like a shitty metalcore rock band. We were kind of like blending different things, and things kind of took off from there. But for the most part, you know, it's kind of hard where I am. Like I said, you know, kids and stuff like that, family and stuff. So the times I get to have a conversation with anybody who does music, my son just gave me the thumbs up, so we're good. Anytime I have time to talk with people about music and metal and anything that's outside of, you know, what people would call, you know, because you get a lot of those people who are just like, oh, you're into music. Oh, what kind of music? Oh, you like that screaming shit. And, you know, like, you know, it's really, really interesting.
And they always call it screamo too. Oh, you like screamo? Like,
they're ready. You know, have you ever ran into the people that say, oh, I'd really like this music if there was no screaming? And it's like, what do you want to layer fucking Phil Collins over it?
Do you
like,
think
you have to have screaming?
Which not knocking Phil Collins.
No, but I'm saying
Phil Collins rules.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
100%. Yeah. And actually, sidebar. Actually, I'm going to throw him in my top musicians, Phil Collins. But but actually, and it's a great point that you say that because Doug, because I tell people all the time that don't listen to heavy music. I tell them, and especially if they're saying things like, oh, like why are they screaming? Do they have to scream? It would be better without screaming, so on and so forth. I tell them there are certain things that you can't convey just through singing alone. Mm-hmm. Some things you have to scream.
Yeah, right? For sure.
No choice. Like I listened to the song More by Every Time I Die. It's a song about him being on tour and his wife getting assaulted, I guess, by a guy, like and he's feeling helpless across the country, like while she's back at home. And like, that's something that you have to scream out. That like has that energy that you just have to let it out that way. So.
And I think that's crazy. A good example is a song in the studio project that I do, Misery Chord, about an unfortunate event that happened in Brandon's life, and I think it's a relatable situation. And it starts off with this really, really beautiful singing, but then it just breaks down into just absolute depravity because, like you said, the emotions dictate it. When you're in a situation where you feel helpless, you can do nothing. People react differently. Some people get nervous. Some people laugh. Some people cry uncontrollably. Some people fucking rage. And I'm unfortunately, I'm that type of person. My mom says it's a Latin thing. I have no clue, but I tend to get kind of emotional about things. My wife tells me it's a Pisces thing. I don't know about that shit. It's just when I'm feeling emotions, man, the only way I know how to convey it is yelling at the top of my lungs. because we're, as human beings, we have so many different emotions, so many different things, and there's multiple ways to express ourselves. And I think that music is such a great vehicle for absolutely letting everything that you feel inside yourself, pushing it out. Because, you know, I don't think if it wasn't for bands like Slipknot, if it wasn't for bands like Bleeding Through, Atreyu, so on and so forth, Dayseeker, those type of bands that have really gotten me through some of the most difficult times in my life, who knows what I would have done? Who knows what I would have done with that sadness or that anger? And anybody who feels like they can't control that stuff, man, put on just something heavy that slaps, man, that just absolutely just conveys your feeling. There's an album I go to every day. I have either a really, really rough day or something that just utterly pisses me off. And it's Throwdown Haymaker from 2004, man. And I just think the intro to that album, you know, is kind of like a live piece. It's like, what's up, motherfuckers? You know, like just going off. And then the first line when he kicks in is like, never back down, never. And I'm just like fucking raging. And like inside me, like I'm sitting there listening to the music, I'm calm, but inside me is raging at a most furious pace. I'm like, in my mind, I'm ripping walls, I'm throwing shit at people, you know, and that's the type of stuff, unfortunately, especially as adults, we can't express in a way that we'd like to, you know what I'm saying? I think that's why it's interesting that there's new therapies that people are trying to do. But for me, I'm sure much like you guys, music is the greatest therapy for me on a rough day, you know?
Absolutely. 100% agree. And it's to like, with music in general, that's the case, like 100%. And then with metal music or heavy music or whatever, it's great too. Cause it's like, it has applications that you wouldn't even expect. Like one, it's just for emotional sake. Like there's no better music for if you're feeling angsty and you need to get something out. Aside from that, it's like, if you don't have the energy to do something, like I can be just so like dragging my feet on a given day, and I put on like just some banger, some fucking heat, and I have a jolt. It's like I drank a pot of coffee. Like so it really does things. Heavy music, I find, like in multiple contexts.
It's a good way to channel a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know, like a lot of people say shit like, "Oh, that metal makes me angry." And it's like, they're like they're surprised to find out it doesn't make me angry. And I'm like, well, no, dude, like, cause I channel whatever emotions I'm feeling through the music.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like where I think that's where a lot of people don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
It's like metal's not the most popular genre, like country music and rap are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And those aren't the same. Those aren't even remotely the same thing. I've never listened to a rap song and tried to channel anything through it, or a country song.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, but metal is always there.
Oh man, I got a Biggie Small song. I think if you heard it, might channel some stuff. For me personally, there are certain things that I don't know if you guys have like a go-to. Like I said, you know, Throwdown's one of those things when I have like a rough day or whatever the case is. But me as a person, I have so many things that, you know, depending on my emotion or how I feel, that I like to go to. If it's a particular sad time, I like to listen to Armor for Sleep. You know, if it's a particular day where it's just like, man, this is kind of just, there's no like low energy, nothing going on or anything like that, I need to put on something that's singy and catchy. So like A Day to Remember, something that's a little bit more upbeat, that's kind of giving me stuff. The guys at my job actually kind of make me laugh, because like on Fridays I come in and whatever I'm listening to, you know, usually, you know, it's Friday, man. It's Friday. I go into work at like 4 something in the morning. So like I need as much energy as I possibly can get going. So I'm singing, I'm, you know, doing my thing, getting my truck loaded and whatnot, and getting my day started. And you'll hear everybody's like, man, you got a really good singing voice, but I don't know what that other thing you're doing is. You know what I'm saying? But back to the argument about how people view metal. So this is something that I find for myself is a great way to kind of explain to people how in my mind, I think why I don't think we need to justify screaming, but in my mind makes sense to them. And it's the very simple argument that, do you believe in religion or do you not believe in religion? You do it however you want to do it. And most religions, whether you're Catholic or Protestant or so on and so forth, they all do something different. It's all about how you do it. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same thing for music. There's multiple flavors of it, man. And we're just so lucky that we have access to so much music. I can't think of a time more now where we have so much access to a wide array of music. You know, the weird things that catch on is absolutely insane. And then add social media into that. Like that, the rapper Kid Leroy, man, he's blowing up right now because of social media, because of TikTok, because you hear that song Stay like all the time, to the point where I was like, let me just listen to this fucking kid and figure out what it is. And when I heard the songs and I heard the emotion, you know, while, you know, certain people are probably like, oh, this kid's, you know, it's a white rapper, whatever, who cares? You know what I'm saying? But this kid's actually saying some real shit, man. And it's definitely, like I said, you know, you get different things from different people. And that's what I say, man. There's multiple flavors of what we enjoy. You may like Chinese food. I may not. You might like Indian. I may love Indian as well, too. We're not always going to see eye to eye. It's just respect the fact that it's a form of music. It may not be for you, and that's okay. You know, there's a lot of things in our life that and I'm guilty of this too myself, where we want to know the answer, but sometimes it's just not for us to understand. You know what I'm saying? If you don't understand it, but we can respect it. You know what I'm saying? We can have a common respect. And I think metal musicians have and this is going to sound negative, but I think we have more of an openness to multiple genres as opposed to someone who really isn't. You know, that whole famous, oh, I listen to everything. It's like, really? Do you really? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
And then I throw on Lona Shore and they're like, what the fuck is this? What the happened? You listen to everything.
So you don't listen to everything. Right.
I agree. Like if we're listening to, and this might make us sound elite, like music listening elitist. We're 100% not. It's just perspectives. But if we're listening to what could be deemed by like the majority of people as the most edgy, the most gritty, the most like room for offense, possibly, in terms of like the way that it actually sounds, maybe not in terms of the content of it. Like if you can manage that, if you can handle that and more, if you can really enjoy, dissect, and just kind of take that for all it is, then you can absolutely do that for anything that's not metal. Like it's an advantage. I feel like.
Interestingly enough, I had my dad on the show a couple episodes ago, and we talked about once again, my family's from Puerto Rico. And even in that episode, you know, my dad was saying how they were labeled the gringos because they listened to rock music, you know? And I asked my dad, you know, what kind of bands back then were kind of controversial, especially because my grandmother was she was religious, you know, but as I understand, she wasn't like super on them about what they listened to. My grandmother was very wide open to music. And a low key celebrity in Puerto Rico, you know, so that was like super cool to find out. But my dad said, you know, bands like Kiss for him were probably as edgy as he got. And he said, you know, they listened to Iron Maiden, which he said lyric wise, that was probably the most controversial band that they listened to, you know, the Mark of the Beast and stuff like that, you know. But I think it's interesting, you know, like my dad told me, because to be perfectly honest with you, we had the Linkin Park conversation. My dad actually showed me Linkin Park. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the most craziest thing about the situation. You know, I kind of found Slipknot on my own just because I was looking to, like, personally, I was just looking to rebel at the time when I found them, you know. And so the fact that, like, my dad showed me Linkin Park, and then, you know, he showed me a couple of other bands and stuff like that. Nothing more extreme. I think for him, Linkin Park was as heavy as it was going to get for him. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So my dad got me into certain things like that, but I don't know. I think it's crazy that, just because we're a different culture and a culture that maybe is not so associated with rock music, I think that it's kind of crazy that like people of the same culture were kind of discrediting them because they listen to rock music or they listen to metal. And I think, to be honest with you, that's probably the more offensive thing about the situation, because it's just like, we all have different perspectives. We all have different things going on. And it's okay to like different things. I don't want to knock anybody who likes country music. I may not understand all of it. I know that there's some great storytelling when it comes to that, you know. It's same thing with certain hip hop artists. I don't understand certain things, but there's hip hop artists that I relate to because I grew up in certain areas like certain hip hop artists, you know. So while I wasn't a part of that life, I've seen what that life looks like, you know what I'm saying? But we need to stop discrediting each other because we're all different, man. We're all a different flavor of whatever, you know what I'm saying? And like, it's not, I think people attribute it too much to like, oh, you listen to this, like, so this versus thinking this happened to you, so you listen to this kind of music. Like the if and the if and the then, the cause and effect are kind of switched. And it's like people need to, instead of wondering like, I don't know, instead of getting mixed up on what they're listening to, like maybe considering like, oh, like this must say a lot about their background. Like they must have kind of come from some sort of experience where this did something for them. What could I, like, in listening to this, what could I pull from it, and how could I better like understand maybe where they came from in this whole situation? So, because music is like definitely becomes like the soundtrack to the individual events in our lives. Like that's the reason you remember it for different things. And so like, I think that's even a more powerful force in why we listen to stuff over Vito barking over here, a more powerful force versus like actual taste itself. Like, yeah, I listen to this because I like the way it sounds. In a lot of cases, it's like, oh, I had an experience with it. I was feeling a certain way. I stumbled upon this song. I developed an experience from it, and now I love this song, you know? So, I mean, it really brings up for me how I got into like metalcore. So like right around like 2000, I want to say like 2001. Yeah, probably 2001, 2002. You know, I was into like radio rock stuff, you know, so like Limp Bizkit, Incubus, you know, Korn, you know, POD, all those type of bands you could get. And the other thing too is that my local library, you could actually go pick these CDs up unedited. They were like parental advisory stickers on them and everything. And I'm just going in there like, you know, I'm just going to get this Eminem album here and get this album here. You know what I'm saying? And just, you know, local library hooking your boy up. And then when I got a CD burner, it was game over for the library. So it's just like, I'm burning everything, man.
How funny that was ever a part of the equation. Like looking at our current luxury that is music listening. All you need to do is pay like $12 a month or whatever. I forget how much Spotify costs. And then you have access to all of the music you could possibly want, or at least a shit ton of music versus having to like go and burn a CD, go to the library. This is that, like, what a luxurious time we live in.
Let me tell you something, man. If I showed you my Spotify statistics, you would just be floored about how much music I actually listened to within a year. It's absolutely insane. I think last year it was like 73,000 minutes of just music. That and like my podcast listening was absolutely just absurd. But it's just like you said, man, it's for me, the thing like Spotify is like going to the buffet. I'll take a little of that, a little of this, a little of that. And you just kind of like me constantly, I'm like going through the day through different playlists and stuff like that just, you know, whether, you know, I'm like on my hip hop stuff or I'm on my metalcore stuff, or I just want to listen to some old school, just absolute banger type music, you know. And I think that's a beautiful thing about it. So what I want to like, I'm kind of like bringing up when we're talking about like what it means to us when it comes to music and why certain people may not understand it. I think to my first ever metalcore show that I went to, and I saw a band called Burnt by the Sun, which was the vocalist of that band was the brother to Jamie Josta of Hatebreed. So It was them. What was the other band? Premonitions of War. Holy shit. Let me tell you some throwdown. Premonitions of War. Spazzy kind of hardcore, a little bit more on the heavier side. But it was the opening band. I just remember these guys being like 6 foot whatever, kind of setting up their equipment, and their vocalist was maybe 5'2", 5'3", and he got on stage. Mind you, this is the first show I've ever been to. I've never been to a concert, never been to anything, and this is my first time experiencing metalcore. And he looked me dead in the eye and he said, "We're the N from Toronto. Get the fuck up." And I just was like, for 30 minutes of just watching these guys set, I didn't know what it was. The energy just kind of like, and I use this phrase a lot, and I've always explained this when I talk about what made me draw to that music. It was like a light coming on in a room that had been dark for so long for me. I was so doubtful of myself. I was not as confident as I currently am. I was way more quieter than I am, not talking as much as I am now. You know, I kind of grew up in a very strict, I wouldn't say, well, it was strict. It was strict. I'm not even going to front. It was a strict household, very religious. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. You, ma'am, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir, kind of deal. And this kind of just like, you know, all the emotions and pains that I had ever felt. And from that moment, I was like, I don't know what I have to do, but I need to be a part of this. And I don't know where to even start. In my mind, I thought being a bass player was going to be it. And to be honest with you, me being a vocalist was a happy accident, to be honest with you.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Just like for it to be a happy accident, it just kind of comes up. But I totally agree. Like that was my exact same thought process. Like, cause I've been involved in music to some capacity for over half my life at this point. And it all kind of stems from, you know, something you hear something or you experience something and it's like, oh, I need to be a part of that. I need to contribute in some way, shape or form. It's important that I do. So I completely hear that sentiment loud and clear.
No, and I think that's a great thing. Doug, so like how do you feel about stuff? Like did you have similar feelings of like, you feel like you found something, you're just like, I'm holding on to this, man. This is something that is going to change me as a person?
Like from a musicianship,
well, I mean, in any aspect, you know, like I said, you know, I was going through stuff personally, and this, you know, like finding metalcore was just like, you know, it was like finding your first nude magazine. You know what I'm saying? It changed my whole life, you know?
When I was like 15, dude, I was like pretty depressed, like a lot. Like, I mean, it was just a constant thing. And I listened to this band called Haste the Day.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And like that, Pressure the Hinges was the album. And like that album got me through a lot of shit. So like, I don't know. I think that's kind of where I like latched on to metal, you know, and like sometimes, like you were saying, you don't have to justify it.
Yeah.
Like, one of those things, like you vibe with it and that's it. Like, you know, it feels right to you, so you keep doing it. You know, that's how I've always viewed it. And
that thought of just to vibe with it is a really good thought too. I feel like more and more like, cause we've even discussed like, in some capacity here in this session, like, talking about how different genres affect people differently. And that ultimately lends itself to different genres melding into one another. And now you're kind of at a point where instead of metal being exclusively just like heavy and faster, this or that, or shreddy or whatever, it's now definitely ventured into this terrain of being vibey or like groovy, especially you find that in bands like Volumes or like actually Volumes is kind of like my textbook example of that, where you have like hip hop that could get down with it or whatever, because it vibes that way. So then the, I guess the reasoning behind it detaches from any sort of like, granted, anyone can have like the emotional or sentimental or this or that like tied, but that's where it becomes like, oh no, this feels like my home base of music, even though it's not, you know? So it's just kind of cool, like what different doors people use to access metal.
Yeah, and like you're saying about like it's attached to certain feelings. I'm going to be honest here. As a Puerto Rican man, I don't know how to speak Spanish, you know. But my grandmother's music, a lot of it is in Spanish. For me personally, I listen to it because it just makes me remind me of her. You know, she's no longer with us. So it gives me that feeling. And even though I don't know what she's saying, the music, her voice just kind of guides me through the feeling of what she's feeling when singing those songs. So for me, truly just listening to her and not even knowing exactly what she's singing about, but the feel of it to me just feels so natural. It feels so perfect. And I don't feel like I'm out of place because I don't know what she's saying or whatever the case is. It's very similar to when certain people's like, say like, how do you understand that? You know, it's just like, it's, you know, sometimes certain metal, it's like learning another language, you know, like you don't even have to like read the lyrics to know what this guy's saying. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, as we're getting like disgustingly heavy into like, you know, the Black and deathcore sound, you know, I'm sorry. There's sometimes I gotta, what the fuck did he just fucking say? Let me look that up real quick. You know, obviously you have those things, but for the most part, I think us as metal fans, when we hear somebody screaming, you can kind of pick up a few words right off the rip, you know, and kind of, you know, feel that and be like, oh, okay, cool, man. Wow, he's spitting over here. You know what I'm saying? Like he's throwing down. I
think it's also cool too, because you can even like it's cool how people can take, and I love your example of like listening to a style of music in a language that you don't even comprehend. And the reason I think that's cool is because like I'll find myself often, or not often, but here and there, I'll check out like French hip hop or something else, or something where I absolutely don't understand the lyrics. And me coming from someone who's like not a lyricist or a vocalist or anything like that, coming just from like a percussive and whatever background, it's cool because then I can just look at it from, I can take that vocal piece of the song, and I can just perceive it as another instrument. And I'm sure that probably sounds weird. It's like, oh, you're like discrediting the vocalist. And it's like, no, that's not what I'm doing. But
discredit the vocalist.
Don't you fucking do it. Because then you can take it either as like listening to it to be told a story by the singer, or you can be listening to it now in this case as like a new melody that's entered the equation that you hear as an instrument. So I don't know. That's just me as a weird non-vocalist.
Hey man, if you want to listen to something very interesting, you should listen to Japanese trap music.
Oh, dude.
It is just look up a list on Spotify. Just type in Japanese trap music and sit back, man, because they have some interesting beats that they use, and not like in a traditional trap music. And to me, in my mind, trap music is like T.I., you know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that. So the fact that there's Japanese people who are doing trap music is just, you know what I'm saying?
Trapanese. I love it.
Yeah, Trapanese. Yes, I think that's what they call it too. That's crazy, man. We could go on and on and on and on about that particular subject, but let's move into like, you know, what are you guys looking to accomplish in doing your podcast, man? Because you guys cover so many different things, man, with so many different artists, you know. I look back to like, you know, what you guys were talking about with like with Mark on your last episode, which was interesting to me because you guys had probably the most terrifying part of any podcast I've ever listened to, where you guys were talking about insects and snakes and all that other stuff I don't fuck with.
I guess like in terms of goals.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have any. I don't think we like, it's just something we both enjoy. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to meet people. And I guess us being in it, like kind of harkening back to that mention of, you know, like being in a small town where maybe not a whole lot of people listen to the same heavy music that we do, or, you know, it already being a fairly niche genre to begin with. Yeah. It gives us an opportunity to connect with people that do give a shit about this style of music. So that for one is a really, I guess, kind of a not so a kind of an unwritten goal of just like, you know, let's just make relationships with people that like the same music as us and that same pull. Aside from that, like the reasoning behind the name Bronze Metal Podcast is like, we're like, we don't give a shit. We'll take third place. Like that's fine. That's fine for us.
Set the bar too high.
Yeah. We were saying Gold Metal Podcast, and then Doug's like, nah, Bronze Metal Podcast. Yeah, bronze. So yeah, it's like, it's kind of goalless. It's really,
It's a passion project.
Just a passion project. It's just fun meeting other people that care about this stuff, talking like how awesome to just, and like, just be able to randomly jump on with people, like even like just hearing about people's processes behind what they do. Cause it's all very different person to person, whether it's doing a podcast or whether it's, you know, putting out an EP every month or this or that, or like whatever. So it's just cool. It's just a lot of insight. And I think, I guess you could really say the two main unwritten goals would be establishing relationships and having a community that we're able to engage with that loves metal, and then being able to learn from those other people.
Yeah, man. And I definitely think, and we had this conversation before on your show where, to me, success is interesting. You know, you see how other people did it and you kind of follow through. You know, I have a good friend, AJ Pelletier. I'm actually wearing his shirt right now, the Roads We Travel podcast, where he talks a little bit more about music and mental health. Interestingly enough, we actually had a connection because we were a vocalist in a band at different times. He was their first vocalist and I was actually their last vocalist before the band actually broke up. So we kind of connected over that. And then he just like turned into one of my best friends. Just because we have good conversations, man. And every once in a while he'll check in on me. Every once in a while I'll check in on him, even offline. We just kind of check in with each other just to make sure that we're doing good, man. And like you said, we're building a relationship, man. And this man that we've never met in person, even though he lives in Connecticut, obviously because we kind of met during the pandemic and whatnot. It's an awesome relationship, man. He supports me. I support him, man. He gives me help. I give advice, you know what I'm saying? Because he's been really, really helpful, especially he kind of started me getting into Twitch, which I'm hoping to get back in kind of shortly here, doing some Twitch streams and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys have explored that venue quite yet.
I've tried to experiment with it a little bit on my own personal pet projects, but we haven't dabbled with it for this. It'd be interesting to see what kind of application we could like what we could use it for. What type? Well,
I'm going to tell you right off the top, it's a lot of trial and error, man. I'm going to tell you like so much just testing and trying to figure out how things work. It's definitely an interesting space. And once again, it's one of those things where it's like, it's another avenue for us to explore, to kind of get ourselves out there and whatnot. And I like the fact that you said you guys are, you guys are goalless, you know what I'm saying? Because to be perfectly honest with you, you guys put on I think a great show, you know what I'm saying? And I think it's interesting in the fact that you guys are just out there just being dudes, just loving the fact that we love music like we love it. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody, I'm sure there's, people who probably do podcasting better than all three of us combined, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, do they enjoy it? Are they still having fun with it? Is it still something that means something to them? And me personally, I have and my wife says this all the time, I have so many different interests, but music is that constant for me. It's always been that constant for as long as I could remember. A lot of my relationships are based off of music. Me having my wife is based off of music, my kids are based off of music. It's just like, you know what I'm saying?
Dude, for real.
My son's name is Julian, which is because my grandmother's name was Julia. And she was my first love when it comes to music, just hearing her sing and whatnot, so that like everything around me is that, you know what I'm saying? And I know everybody, once again, you're that attachment there, that some people just don't understand, and that's okay. But, I'm happy that all of this happened, and it all happened because of music, So I don't know. We could go on.
It's crazy looking back at life and like anyone could say for anything, but just like to really process like what took place when in your life and how like music helped kind of move it into that next arena. Like I think about that often where it's like, wow, like I just stumbled upon this thing when I was younger, like kind of invested a lot of my time, energy, and interest into it. And then it's cool looking like so far, like not like I'm doing anything crazy, but it's just, it's cool to like realize you like kind of had this friend like walking holding your hand with you the whole time. And it's like, hey, thanks buddy music. You're the guy. So I totally hear that.
No, for sure. Doug, you seem like you want to say something. Go ahead.
But I just always think back to like my first metal show. I don't know if you guys do that, but I did it all the time. And I don't know if I told you this on the last podcast when you came on ours, but it's about Chelsea Grin. Did I tell you this story? I don't think I did.
No, I'm ready.
So I was up on like Twitter one night, dude. Like it was like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., some bullshit like that. And Dave, the bass player, Chelsea Grin, he sends out a tweet. He's like, does anybody have a PS3 they don't want? I had just gotten a PS4. So I was like, dude, take mine. Like you just have it. And he's like, you plan on going to any shows? And in all honesty, I was not, because I didn't have my own car and it was like 2.5 hours away. But I was like, yeah, dude, for sure. I'm definitely coming to a show. He's like, cool. Well, I'll guest list you and, you know, you can give me the PS3 and, you know, hang out and whatever. And we'll just go from there. Cause he wanted to play The Last of Us, which I also gave him. And then after that, dude, like we just hit it off and like, we've been good friends for like 7 years now. So like, it's just like, if that's not one of the craziest, like first concert experiences, dude, like so my mind is still blown about it. Like you'd ask Dave, like how often I'm like, yeah, I can't believe we're friends. Like, you know, so it's crazy to me, you know, so I don't know.
I think that's cool. It's a similar situation now. Now I know you guys have like a really cool system on how you guys book guests and stuff like that. But for me, I'm like that girl, that thirsty girl who's trying to jump in people's DMs and stuff like that. And to be perfectly honest with you, the effectiveness of it is actually pretty good, because off the strength of me DMing people, I got one of my favorite artists, Rory Rodriguez, to come on my show, just hitting him up on Twitter. And, you know, I didn't know if he was going to read it. I didn't know if he was going to respond to it. You know, and for me, I don't know if you guys are the same way, but when you kind of try to explain what your goal is in putting someone on a podcast, you know, I'm kind of like forthright. I don't want to waste your time. I want to put it out there. Hey, this is what I'm looking to do. This is what my show's about. I would really love to have you on as a guest. Now, I've had a few artists who, you know, don't, you know, I kind of shot pretty high. So I've had a few artists who just ignore me. But Rory was one of those artists that just, he responded, I want to say like within a day. And as soon as I saw it on my phone, I was just like, I looked at my wife and she's just like, are you okay? I was like, Rory responded. And she goes, what did he say? Because Dayseeker is a huge part of me and my wife's life. Back when me and my wife were kind of like pining for each other, me living in Florida, her living here in Massachusetts, I would send her Dayseeker songs, like really sad boy shit. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure she's going to hate every moment of this if she walks in on us talking about this. She hates when I bring her up. But I bring it up because, like I said, music has brought my wife to my life. And I would send her, you know, Dayseeker songs and stuff like that. And at our wedding, I sang Spotless Mind to her because it was kind of the song that, like, kind of, you know, we met when she was 15 and I was 17. And then we dated for a short time, broke up. Never thought I was going to see this girl ever again. Fast forward, that was like 2004. Fast forward to 2012, raising a child by myself. I am basically on my own. And she came up in the people you may know section in Facebook. And I was like, holy shit, look at her, you know? And then from there, it's been like, from that moment on, it's just kind of, 3-4 years of just like, I want to be with you, but I don't want to move, and she got into relationships. I got into relationships. We remained friends and stuff like that. But stuff like just giving music back and forth to her kind of always kept us connected. And I just remember thinking how excited I was about having Rory on my show because of how much he meant to me and how much he actually meant to me being married. You know what I'm saying? Like really just connecting in that way, and I don't know, like, have you guys ever reached out to an artist and just kind of like either, gotten a response that you didn't expect, or maybe was like left on red or something?
Okay. So literally everybody we've asked have just been like fucking blown away that they even said yes. Everybody has come on.
He says we, but Doug is always the one reaching out to these people. He's just mad about it.
Dude, so we actually asked Matt Greiner of August Burns Red to come on.
That was just recent. That was 2 days ago. Yeah. And he responded to us. He said he's too busy to come on, which is totally fair, dude.
At least he responded.
Fully expected.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is I'm surprised he even responded. Mm-hmm. And he did. And I was like, holy fuck. I was like, Matt Greiner just responded to this. Like, that's fucking awesome.
Dude, yeah. And like, there's that whole saying of like, never meet your heroes or whatever, like, because you're going to get disappointed. I am
not him.
Yeah, I'm so happy. Like from the first time I met him, actually, like my first metal show was August Burns Red. And I got to like, it was my dad took my brother and I was probably like 14 or something like that, like, or probably younger, actually, maybe like 12. And my dad took us to the show and we just walk into the venue early. We got there like pretty early and walk into the venue just to check it out. And he's just sitting at one of the tables, like drinking a Starbucks coffee, Matt Greiner. And we go over and we talk to him and he's chatting us up for for a little bit. And just like super nice. It's refreshing when you meet these people that you look up to and they're not shitty people and they're genuinely like very, 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 very like grateful that you as an individual listener support them. Like instead of looking at just their whole fan base and being like, oh, thank you all. It's like, no, you, an individual listener, thank you for giving a shit. Like, he didn't say that because I don't think he's ever said a swear word in his life, but yeah, so it was just really nice having that experience and like and Doug reaching out to him. It's like, I would expect no different. He's just the best dude in the world. And Matt Greiner.
We'll get him on. It's gonna take
that'll be it. That's actually, there's a goal.
That's the goal.
There we go.
That's the goal. Get Matt Greiner on.
Matt Greiner's the goal.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a cool, like you said, an experience, man. Because I've had both sides of it, where you meet somebody and they're super chill, super cool, and you meet somebody and they're a complete D-bag, and it's just like, obviously I'm not going to name any names, but I definitely have had experience with some interesting artists, to say the least. And one of them, if I said his name, would probably be like insane if I said it. I'll tell you guys offline who it is, but I had an interesting situation that led to a friend of mine's getting punched in the face by said artist. What? Yeah. And it was many years ago when I first started in bands and stuff like that. And it was kind of a slightly traumatizing experience, because it was just like, and the thing is that we were and that's another thing. I think people need to remember this as well. Just because these artists are out here, we don't own them. Okay. They're individuals. They are to be respected. They're to be talked to in a way with respect, because in my mind, the more respectful you are to them, the more receptive they are to having that conversation with you. And obviously everybody's going to have their own moments or whatever the case is, especially when alcohol is involved at certain venues. People just kind of tend to go nutty as shit. You know what I'm saying? Instead of being respectful and understanding, yes, this person is in the position that they're in, but they need that respect. They need to be shown that they're still a human being. And just because you are famous for doing what you do doesn't mean that I own you or that you should be talked to other than you know, as a human being, you know what I'm saying? And especially like in my later years, I'm checking my kids on stuff like that. It's just like, it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it to someone, you know?
Yeah. It's all about reception, you know, like it's all about whatever you say to somebody, like doesn't matter sometimes even how you say it, or it just depends on how they received it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you could have the best intentions and somebody just takes it 100% the wrong way.
I have the best story for that, actually, real quick, before we get any deeper into it. So when I want to say I was about 12 years old, I was on the beach in Long Island with my dad, and my dad kept looking over at this guy and he goes, "That's fucking Steven Spielberg over there." And I was like, "It's not Steven Spielberg." He's like, "No, yeah, that's Steven Spielberg over there." Right. And the funny part was, and this is no bullshit, he was legit wearing a hat that says, "I'm not Steven Spielberg," but it was definitely Steven Spielberg. Okay. So my dad just casually walks over and he's just like, "I don't want to be disrespectful. I just want to say, you know, thank you for the movies that you put out. You're an awesome director." And Steven got up, shook my dad's hand, and was like, "Really cool." My dumbass at 12 years old goes, "Man, I love Jurassic Park, but that movie, what was the movie where Robin Williams was like a robot or something? I think it was like Bionic Man or something."
Bicentennial Man.
Yeah, Bicentennial Man. I was like, "That movie sucked." And I was like, I'm 12 years old, right? So my dad goes back and tells his significant other that he's just like, "We just met Steven Spielberg." And then he looks at me and he goes, "This fucking asshole over here tells him his movie sucks." You know, and it's just kind of like, I was a kid at the time, you know, like I'm too honest for my own good, but you know, like that's a perfect example of like, that was kind of assholey, but I'm sure he understood because I was a young kid, you know what I'm saying? Like if my dad walked up and said some shit like that, he'd probably be like, "I'm going to punch you in your face or something," you know? But that's a perfect example of like showing respect to people. And even though he was doing his own thing, he got up and shook my dad's hand and said, "Thank you very much. I appreciate you," you know? And you know, it was kind of a good experience, you know?
Yeah,
I'd shit my pants if I met Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, and the fact that you were pointing out Jurassic Park, that made me think of you right away. Yeah, because it's like, yeah, that's like.
So, dude, like I'm working on a bunch of screenplays actually, and
really,
everybody asks me, you know, where I got the idea to make movies, and I was like, as soon as I figured out that Jurassic Park was made by people doing jobs, that was it. That's when I realized I want to be in film. And Star Wars.
Hell yeah, man. So, you know, we're gonna wrap this up, man. I appreciate you guys coming on. I think we'll have to have you guys come back on again, man. I appreciate the time that you're giving me. But you know, let everybody know where they can find the Bronze Metal Podcast on social medias and streaming platforms.
All right. So all of you Blue Presents listeners, come be bronzies with us. Come be bronzies. That's bronze metal thing. So the place that you can find us is so on Facebook and Instagram, you have Bronze Metal Podcast. It is not bronze metal as in bronze like metal that you get at a race. It's bronze metal as in metal with a T, like metal music. So don't get it twisted. So you can find us there on Facebook, on Instagram. We're on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all that. We also have our own personal Instagrams, which you can find, and social accounts, which you can find on our Bronze Metal thing. So yeah, come hang out with Bronze Metal Podcast.
Slide into our DMs.
Yes, slide into our DMs. We'll appreciate you coming and becoming bronzies with us. So yeah,
nothing wrong with that. And I suggest you guys listen to it. It's a great show, man. Always entertaining. You guys have had some hell of a guests. You guys have had, friend to the show, Brandon Cooper on, which is a great conversation there. Guys like the vocalist from Hacktivist, man, which was an awesome. You guys just had Mark Ender on, which I've had Pathogen on. I haven't had Mark on, so hopefully I can get to him. That was an interesting conversation, but thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it. And, you know, we probably could have done like 6 hours with as much as we've been talking. But thank you guys so much. And I appreciate you guys, man. And hope you guys have a great night.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us, man. It's been a pleasure.
No worries. Thank you.